do that. So I'm Prime. I'm a retired troll extraordinaire. So I probably trolled many of you on IRC. I was. Basically, I get paid money to do some management stuff for an MPS company. I'm a founder of HHS, which is High Hack Society. We got many guys here that are speaking in the con from that. There's many in the room as well. So shout out to those guys. We're a community of guys just passionate about Infosec. Also, I'm a set developer. Thanks to Dave for that. So basically, I'm going to give you a little bit about my story, starting with the noob days. So to begin with my noob days, when I first found out about the internet, we were in the dial-up stages, and I couldn't afford a dial-up modem because I was just a kid. So what I did is I stole one from the computer lab at school. So I started off my path in Infosec great. Basically from there, I hoarded AOL trial discs. You know, for those of you who can't afford internet service, we hoarded that. And basically, every time it would expire, I would go ahead and just use another one. I'm sure you guys are all familiar with the 5,000 that they sent everyone. Basically, at that time, the web was still very crappily filtered. There wasn't a lot of good stuff out there for topics like that. I started to get into punters, if anybody's familiar with that term, and punting people offline, which was awesome when you're a kid especially. But basically it pushed me to learn more. How did the punter work? You know, I wanted to know the back end. I wanted to know how the code worked. You know, I didn't want to just kick people offline, all that was fun, but I wanted to find out exactly, you know, how does it work? So also something that I got into, I was very intrigued by the fact that even though I was a young kid, I could go online and basically be anybody I wanted. And it really got me interested in social engineering and just in the fact that there was no boundaries to who you could be or what you could do online. So basically from that point, I moved on to the good old days. That's what I like to call it. And that was like mid-90s. Basically, I got my first account at a non-AOL ISP. So I was very excited that I wasn't on AOL anymore. And that opened the door to just the web in general. And I started to get very interested in hacking and stuff. And at those times, there was no Google. You couldn't just throw in a search in Google and get 5 billion sites that would teach you about it. So what I did is I found a site called the Web Fringe. It was the Fringe of the Web. I don't know if any of you are familiar with it, but shouts to Bronx Buster and Arsnake because it was a hell of a site. Basically, it was a top 100 site list, and it had topics ranging from everything. It had hacking, phreaking, coding, social engineering, wares. It was awesome. It was really a great site, and I learned a lot of great things from that. But what it did is it pushed me to learn about IRC. So I'm sure all of you are familiar with that. And IRC opened the door to a whole new world. Basically, you can go on IRC, you can interface with users and ask a lot of questions and then get trolled and then rage quit. You know, that's basically how it works. That's pretty much what I do on Xbox right now. So basically, from IRC, you know, like I said, it opened up a whole new door. And around that time, when I started to get into hacking and understanding the scene at the time, basically the big thing was, are you white hat or are you black hat? And some of the places that led me, I went down more of a black hat path, just from the people that I interfaced with on IRC. I got to hang out in a lot of cool places, some channels like Elite, Hack Freak, Millworm, Feed the Goats. I don't know if you guys are familiar with any of those, but it was a lot of cool channels with a lot of brilliant people that were doing some really cool things at the time. And the web at that time also was very Wild West. So you could go on IRC, and if you didn't mask your IP, there was a good chance somebody was trying to own you. And most times they could and would. So it was a very dangerous time. It was a little dangerous place, but it was a lot of fun. Doing that route, I kind of got into defacements of the 90s, and I'm not proud to say that now because everyone hates defacers, but hung with a lot of cool groups like Global Hell and Hackwiser, Data Masters. There was a lot of cool stuff at the time, and I was just young, so I enjoyed it. I got the thrill from it, and it was a different time. So from that point, hanging out with those groups, what happened eventually, as many of you know, is people started getting busted. So a lot of the Global Hell members actually got busted in the 98, 99 range. When I moved on to Hackwiser, a lot of people got busted in 03, and then Data Masters eventually disbanded because the scene got old. So learning about that, it taught me a very valuable lesson. One is practice high OPSEC. So if you're not familiar with OPSEC, talk to the Gruck because he does some awesome stuff on it. But basically, it taught me that all fun and games lead to the end game of probably going to jail. So it made me realize that maybe this isn't the path I should go. About the time people started getting busted, I got kind of tired with the scene in general, and I just needed to take a break. So I took a few years off where I kind of reinvented myself, focused on work, dollar bills, y'all. Got to make that money. So I basically just took a break from it and, stepped back and just watched what would happen. So around '09, I started to get back into the scene. I had moved cross country. I didn't know anyone. So I got involved with a local makers group who had an IRC channel. So I'm like, oh, this sounds familiar. Went and I got introduced to Freenode, which is an awesome server. And I started to search topics that I was interested in, social engineering, things of that nature. I want to give a shout to SE United because I met a lot of the guys that I'm friends with from that channel. Shouts to the Eccentric who couldn't make it here. But that channel opened up to the door to the scene had changed. So before, where it was a lot of mischief, mayhem, we had changed the scene into like you could now be a professional who hacks things and make a lot of money doing it. So I got to get into that a little bit, and something that I found that I was interested in was SET, which is awesome. And at the time, Dave was largely working on it himself, besides maybe one other guy. And I said, hey man, do you need help with this? And he's an awesome guy, so he was like, sure. And I started to get involved with that. So I kind of changed my perception of myself so that I could be more helpful rather than starting mischief. Other than that, the SET work, I founded High Hack Society, and I basically collected groups of people I knew from different channels that were very brilliant and put them together so we could kind of be almost a think tank to work together, code some projects up. So basically that's my story, and here I am now. So once again, thanks for joining, guys, and I guess I'll pass it on to Dave. Nick? Cool.
I got all that. I'm Nick, and I have absolutely no notes, so I'm just going to go here and paddle for a little bit. And a broken arm. So, yeah, that's it. That's all I got. And, actually, it's really interesting, some of the things Brian was saying about, early on, like as your kid, almost all of the startup is that kid who, just got his parents to buy a computer, and you get your free disk for AOL or CompuServe, and you're like, hey, I want to go online. And I really got to hand it to my parents. We didn't have a lot of money growing up, and they spent the equivalent of about $3,500 to $4,000 when they were done just to get me I think it was a 46 SX25 with a turbo button that upped it to 33 megahertz. Just, yeah. 2 megs of RAM, I think. I blasted that sucker up to 40 meg hard drive. So no CD-ROM. They're actually 1Xs that just come out. So early on, I wanted to learn about what was going on with computers in general before even trying the internet. I grew up on MacGyver. I grew up on A-Team and all that, those type of shows where it's like they were doing all this cool stuff, and like it was like really cool to take things apart, make them do something else. So I decided, hey, I want to use CD-ROMs in my computer. So my parents actually, I don't know what was going through their head at the time, but they said, okay, you can take your computer apart that we just paid $35,000 to $4,000 for. And at the time, the only one I could really come across was it was a parallel card that you put in an OLISA slot, and it was an external 2X CD-ROM. So I actually got it to work, which made me really proud to do that as a 12-year-old or whatever I was at that time, I don't know. But then came along the internet and CompuServe disks. Ooh. I grew up in the boonies. I don't know if you know this, but there's not a lot of places you can call for free. So when you get 300, 500, 600 hours for free, and don't realize that it's a long distance call, and you go through all those hours, your parents can get pretty angry when they get that phone bill, and that's what happened to me. So, but what that experience did was it got me really interested on what the internet was all about. As Pr1me said, you know, there's very little, honestly. AOL, CompuServe, they're really closed networks. And then same thing, a local ISP started up in the area. Got on board with them early on, like if I was Nick at the ISP, you know, so like way early on when they started, which had a local phone number, which meant I had to get a modem now in my turbo computer. So I got this external 14.4 modem, and I was the shiz, man. So, which is actually really funny when I discovered IRC, what was to do except ICMP people knock their slower connections off just for fun and take over channels. So me and a buddy, who actually, you might know him, his name is Chris Hadneggy. Me and I, or him and I would team up and use both of our 14.4 modems, and not these guys who had very small modems there. And then as it up to 28.8 and 56.8, you know, we were really, you know, hey, yeah. But then we found out that some people were getting ISDNs and higher, it got harder. So then we started social engineering techniques actually to take over IRC channels. So, you know, that was the mentality of us back then. And some gaming, you know, do 3D, you know, over the phone lines, things like that. I actually came across this the other day, before I get into what I do now. I came across a fake business card that I made up. And I think this is sort of inspired by watching the movie Sneakers. And I made a business up in my head called Elite Computer Services. And basically the fake business that I was pretending to be, was somebody who goes in and breaks into your stuff and shows you how to fix it. Never thinking I'd actually be able to do that, you know, because right now I know for a real dumbass right now, but I mean, sorry, Dave, I work for Trusted Sec. Anyways, jumping ahead a few years now, but it was just, I just thought that was interesting from my perspective. It was like, wait a minute, I actually sort of had a goal and I didn't even realize it, because I was an ADD child, which probably 99% of the room or people who attend DerbyCons are, so it's very hard to focus on a lot. So I never actually focused on, programming or, you know, whatever, but I always love computers and all, so as a whole. So what I did was I started fixing computers on the side, but I, you know, not having the opportunity to actually go to college because of the lack of funding, I decided, okay, I'm just going to go and get my A+ certification, because that seemed like the right thing to do to start off. Once I got my A+ certification, I actually applied for a job at a Gateway country store, which had started coming around 2099, somewhere in there, and they hired me. And I got a chance to work on computers in a workbench environment. And then a few years later, I started my own business fixing computers, and picked up a couple clients. Basically, it was like, you know, an MSP for them, which was really great. I got married, and then I started getting really bored with just fixing computers and dealing with clients, and did not want to do tech support anymore. So actually, bring Chris Hadneggy back into the mix, which is a human hacker, by the way, from social-engineer.org. Runs the social engineering captures lag, and I think I saw Lily in here actually. Yeah, Lily back there. She's the winner from this year in our CTF. But anyways, Chris and I were chatting, and what's really uncanny about this, we lived in 2 hours apart at the time, and we both were talking about, hey, you know what I'm thinking of doing? I'm thinking about getting into security. And it was like, wait a minute, no, I am. So we both had the same idea at the same time. What I decided to do was I found a boot camp in Plano, Texas that I could take for 1 week that would give me my CEH and my CEHFI. So I'm like, yeah, sign me up. Sounds good. I didn't really know. It's got the word hacking in it. It's got to be good. Chris, on the other hand, found this puny little company called Offensive Security, which turns out to be one of the best trainers in the world for our type of work. And he went and did his OSCP, and actually ended up working for offensive security for Mehdi and Pr1me, who's Mutt's and also one of the main developer for backtracking, Cali now. So I paid a lot. Let's just say I think I paid about $4 grand for mine, and he paid $700 for his. So yeah, eventually. But what really helped me to get into this awesome community, and we want to touch on that or get to that, here are the people that I met the very first con that I went to. I believe it was ShmooCon 3 or 4, I think. And because I had been hanging out with Chris, and Chris knew the guys from Infosec, it was almost like we were family. And I'm like, wait a minute, you're sort of like royalty. I mean, you guys make backtrack. That's pretty cool. So I'm hanging out with people, and I meet Dave. I mean,
Your horrible boss.
yeah. So, yeah, he's all right. Sorry. So when do I get my own pinball machine? That's what I want. Anyways.
If you move to the office, you can play the pinball machine.
Yeah, so, anyways. But I remember just the very first ShmooCon that I was at, it was like, I was so accepted by these individuals that were so incredibly much smarter. I didn't go to college. very smart, much more smarter than I am. Yes. So then words, things, and stuff. And it was just really cool that these people who are, leading the way in information security are like hanging out with a peon. And just hanging out. And actually, what happened was I went and I got my OSCP, which is, if you are familiar with that, it's Pr1me is the training, pen testing with backtrack. I believe it's still called pen testing with backtrack. I didn't change the pen testing with Cali, did they? Okay, did they? Okay, cool. I took like version 1, I think, or 2. Wow, they've done a lot of updating, obviously, which I was graciously allowed to take for free because we take off and just became friends, which I was entirely grateful for. And the rest is basically history. Went to ShmooCon, went to DerbyCon, got a chance to go to Black Hat. I got involved in B-Sides, security B-Sides, Las Vegas, and then B-Sides Delaware. And then here comes DerbyCon. So I'm sitting there with Dave one time, a few years back, in the cigar bar at Caesars, and they're talking about doing this thing called DerbyCon in Louisville, Kentucky. I'm like, that sounds cool. And I had already started doing security for B-Sides Las Vegas, and he was like, hey, you want to do security? I'm like, sure, yeah, definitely. And never could have
I would have
met.
thought 3 years later you would have flipped the golf cart and had a security broken arm.
I don't know what you're talking about. This is where I keep stuff. Yeah, so if you miss opening statements, okay, I was golfing. I was going up a very steep cart path, and I decided to go around a friend of mine and jack the wheel to the right and hit the brake, and it flipped over and ejected me about 8 feet, and I fractured and dislocated my shoulder.
You're
So, no, not anymore, because I was totally dragged. There wasn't actually involved. The cans were involved, but
The beer was gone.
yeah. But to sum it up, okay. So basically, we're trying to convey what got you into Infosec, and if I needed to say one thing, it's the community, and it is the humility of the people who know the best or know the most. Like Dave, the guys you see up here, Matty at Pr1me, Peter, Coral encoder. The list just goes on and on. People that you can just approach, and if you have a problem with something, they're patient with you. It's not like, oh, get away, you. So I really appreciate that, and that is a key indicator of if they are truly elite in our community, is if they give people like me a chance to work with them and to increase my skills as a hacker and as a penetration tester. And that's all I have to say.
Well, I'm Frank Hackett. My story's probably not nearly as interesting as what you've heard already, but here it goes. Anyone ever met that sysadmin that said, my network's secure because I have a firewall? That was me. So yeah, sysadmin, and we had this front-end web server back in was SQL, SA account, didn't have a password. You guys can probably see where this is going, but that database got destroyed, and it was, how did that happen? I've got my Blinky box, and it said it would protect me. Started looking into it, SQL injection. I had my logs. I was able to go through it, see where the attack came from. I said, that's cool. They bypassed what I had in place. I didn't like that. I wanted to know how it worked, why it worked. So I started looking into SQL injection. Came across a guy by the name of Rel1k. Started watching his videos and just kind of stalking him online to get right down to it, trying to learn as much as I could. Well, it turns out Joe runs his rookie program. So I jumped in Joe's rookie program. It's an internship that will work you to the bone. Very first thing Joe had me do was rewrite a SQL injection course, and I had his notes, and I had to take screenshots, this, that, and the other. Going through, we really started to learn the process. I'm looking at this stuff going, whoever wrote this course, they were badass. Who is this guy? And these initials CG on every page. Oh, this is not going to end well. So yeah, and I rewrote this course that Chris Gates had written originally. It was just like, holy hell, I'm in this stuff now. Hell of a learning experience. And if you're looking to get into it, to start to learn, hit up Joe, get in this program. It will run you to the bone, but it's definitely worth it. It completely changed my career from the sysadmin to the security side. Again, what Nick said about the community, I'd never been to a conference before. Joe called me and said, yo, what are you doing this weekend? You want to go to Rel1k? Sure. You know, hell, let's go. I haven't been to one. Should be a good time. Or I'm driving and tweeting, because that's a good thing to do. And these two jokers down here in front, Pr1me and Conceal, are tweeting back at me going, that's awesome, you're coming. Come see us when you get here. Well, I don't know who these people are. But sure, I'll come say hi. I walked in the CTF room, Pr1me comes running right up with his phone going, is this you? Is this you? I'm like, yeah, what's up, man? How you doing? Lo and behold, now these are two of my best friends in this room right now. The community is tremendous. Now, I remember the first time I met Dave. I was at Aid and just walked up to him and it was, Hackett, what's up, man? Give me a big old bear hug. And yeah, I was a nobody. But yeah, the humility in this community is tremendous. And it makes you want to be a part of it. You know, it makes you want to give back. I made myself give a couple talks. Didn't want to, was scared to death. But I learned from that. Just a great experience. I'm actually now, I'm 2 weeks out from transitioning completely from sysadmin to only doing security, where I've been doing kind of both. Company I work for is an MSP. We started a security company, and we've been selling some pen tests, some auditing, stuff like that. Sold a couple tests from Rapid7, which I'll always be happy about. But it's just been a ride, being a part of the community. You know, getting on Twitter, seeing everybody, meeting everybody, coming out to these cons. You know, taking Pr1me to slice for a piece of pizza.
Thanks. 3 people in the room that
Yeah. So, you know, and I'm part of High Hack Society. Saw this guy on IRC, and what is his deal? He just must need a hug, needs a friend. He trolls everybody. And started talking to him. Turns out he's pretty smart. And it's a great group. You know, we hang out, we do troll each other, but it's a huge think tank, and it's changed the way that I look at everything. It's changed the way that I approach things. Without a doubt, it made me a better sysadmin. I'm very glad those days are coming to an end. I had 9 left, not that I'm counting. It just increased everything. You know, I loved it. I've loved the ride it's been. I've loved the friends that I've made, and they're lifelong friends. You know, people I get to see once, twice a year, and every time you're greeted with a hug and a smile. So without a doubt, that's pretty much my story. Like I said, not that exciting, but it's worked for me.
So you don't know the whole ice story. That's a really fast parlay, but you didn't work opening ceremonies. But
Oh my God.
it's so bad. It started last year where I think it was a new slide, and basically people were getting iced. What's that? Was it SE podcast? Yeah. So I think it actually was an SE podcast, and so we basically, someone came in and was like, "Hey, you're getting ice." We're like, "What's ice?" And you have to drink a Smirnoff Ice, and it's hot and warm and awful. It's the most horribly tasting thing you can ever imagine. So this year it's become more of an event. I think next year we're gonna actually have it a sponsored event, so we get more ice. And it'll be a challenge. We might even do a black badge at the end of it or something, But no, I mean it's a fun one, and they've been heating them up with irons and boiling them and putting them in the sun and stuff like that. It's horrible. Yeah, it's pretty bad. So I appreciate everybody coming out. I guess start off from the scratch or from where I started from and kind of build up there. But I started off not really that old. I'm only 31, so I think that's still not old. Although people that are really young are like a year old, and that's kind of weird. But anyways, I started off, with more of the multi-user dimensions and mods and kind of playing video games online and playing trade wars and stuff like that. I remember skipping school all the time to play StarCraft with my buddy on a modem. So that was like the best time of my life, and I literally almost failed out of high school. I had to go to summer school just to pass because I never went to school and I never wanted to because I always played on the computer. And I was always supposed to be the one that was in I was the family black sheep. I was the one that was like. In fact, it's funny because my stepmom, her brother-in-law, called me up there today, and he has his graphics company along with my stepmom. And he was calling me on the phone, and they do all of our banners and things here for DerbyCon. And he's like, "Dude, I'm really proud of you. You were the one that was supposed to be the complete screw-up, and you really showed us proud." And that's kind of my MO. And I started off. I kind of let my life take me where I need to go. And so I quickly got out of high school after I went to summer school and passed. And my parents couldn't figure out, why is he always getting bad grades? He's a smart kid, but I just never liked it, And so I went through school, learned computers and played around. And really the changing point in my life for me was the military. So going into the Marine Corps, I spent a lot of time at, obviously Paris Island, and then from there I was stationed in Hawaii and met a lot of great people. And I was in intelligence, so I got to start to learn how to crack crypto and things like that, and play around with intelligence stuff, and do all the NSA stuff that you're seeing today. Not really, not really, but kind of really. Yeah.
Elaborate on that.
Code red. But for me and my values, I think the changing point for me in life, and I can actually pinpoint it to one spot in my life, which was I was in Iraq for 2 years. One first deployment was during the initial invasion, the shock and all that good stuff. Then the second deployment was during the major insurgency. So I was in what they call the Sunni Triangle of Death, which is a really, really nice resort area. And so I would do missions between what was called Camp Blue Diamond to Habaniya and Fallujah, which again are awesome resort places. They're great places for Americans to go. And so I would go on convoys all the time, and I remember sitting on this one convoy, and this isn't offense to the Army at all, but when Marines go out, we go out in force. So we have 16 convoys with air support and tanks and all of this stuff. But when I go with the Army, we'd go in 3 or 4 Humvees that have a saw on them. And I'm like, it's the only time where the Army guys are "Oh, this is fine, don't worry about it." I'm like, "Oh, I don't want to die," so they're used to it. I'm not. So I'm like, "Where's all my protection? Where's all my armor?" So anyways, I was doing a run to Habaniya to do some intelligence collection over there. I had developed a wireless intercept system that would collect and basically be able to triangulate where terrorists were and all that good stuff. And I'm sitting there, and I hear over they call them SINGARs, they're communication devices to do comms and stuff like that. And it was one of the worst days in Iraq. It was this highway, which is notoriously made by ambushes and IEDs and stuff like that. And I could hear over the radio that there's a lot of our troops dying and stuff like that. And we were basically going right through it. We're driving right to it. And the Army guy looks back at me. He's like, "Hey man, just keep your head down and you'll be fine." I mean, they're in this open enclosure, on the back of this Humvee with a hatchback on it. And so I'm like, so I'm laying down, my M16 tucked away like this, But we stopped, and I stopped. And I'm sitting on top of a Humvee, and I'm smoking a cigarette. And I'm like, if I make it through this day, I'm really going to change it because it's going to be a pretty bad day. And that moment forward, I kind of had a sense inside of me to change everything I'd done just to kind of live life the way I should and make it the most fun I ever possibly could. And so that's been my drive behind security. And, you know, coming out of it, you know, I came out of the military and came out fine, obviously I'm still here. My outlook on life is that, you know, really things can change any day. I mean, you know, tomorrow can be a completely different day than it was yesterday, and it always is. And so you have to live your life the way that you want to be fun with. And when you go to work, you can't go to work like, I hate this job. Don't do it. There's so many different things you can do out there to make it fun, and only do what you think is your passion and what you love to do, because we're not here for a very long time. If you hate your life every day, it's not worth it. So you go and you find different things that you do that you like. And that's the thing, like, I'm in no way, shape, or form smart. You know, I'm not, you know, better than anybody. I don't know anything more than anybody else does. We all have different experiences. I just have a different experience. And so when I left and got out of the military and went to a company called Secure State, one of the best companies to come out of the military too. Super fun, exciting. You know, they had kegs in the office. It was such a great experience for me, and it was a great company. I mean, some great people that I met there that are just absolutely brilliant and intelligent. And for me, what I did, and this is how I learned everything, is I just became a sponge. I learned from everybody else around me. I became friends with everybody else around me. And I learned from everybody because everybody has so much intelligence behind them that you can take all of that, find out what you like, and start to build on it. I remember in 2005, I had a web application hacking book, and I'm looking at it, it's like, what the heck is SQL injection? You know, I'm like looking at it and reading through this book and trying to figure out what it was and not knowing where to go or what I wanted to focus myself on. And the day that it really changed is I was in the IRC chat room, and I was in at the time it was WAPix or IWAX, I think. It was basically before Backtrack, before all that stuff. And Maddie and Mutz was in that channel, and I looked up to him as, like, you know, an amazing little, you know, amazing dude that I never would be able to talk to and things like that. And I sent a message to him like, hey man, I'm in a position where, you know, I'm kind of starting off early in my security career. You know, what can I do to kind of break it? You know, to go and figure out what, you know, can help the community, better it, you know, that type of thing, because obviously you're on an awesome track here. And he said, dude, he's like, just, you know, think of something that hasn't been done that makes your life easier and build it. That was his only message. And I'm like, I don't really know what to do with that. So I'm like, all right, well, which Python programming, or what language would you prefer? He's like, Python. I'm like, okay. So my first tool was Fast Track. I don't know if anybody remembers that, but it was really my first, you know, test at actually programming, and it was the most horrible code you could ever possibly imagine. Like, I went back at it and I literally, like, that's why I rewrote it in the set. Like, I rewrote the whole thing. I didn't take one line of code from it. It was literally one try except block with no comment code. It was like 20,000 lines of code, no code reviews, no functions, nothing. So my second major tool was set. And, you know, you just have to think of something that makes your life easier and build it. And from there it goes on. And the easiest thing I can explain to you is, you know, there's no person that's a security rock star. There's no person in here that I mean, I don't know about you, but I don't fly on my own personal jet and go to concerts and, you know, get a whole bunch of people recognizing me and stuff like that. It's not how it works. We're not rock stars. We're computer geeks. I don't know where the whole rock star thing came from, because we're computer geeks. And so, you know, we're all different in our different experiences. But for me personally, what resonated with me is just trying to better something or make it better or do something different. And, you know, a lot of people in this industry lose that and they lose focus on it. I know a lot of close friends to me that really got consumed with the whole rockstar mentality and the ego stuff, and really became a much different person than I used to know. And, you know, for me, that scares me. So for me, every time I come here at DerbyCon or I go anywhere else and someone says, hey man, you know, you're a rock star, I'm like, no, I'm not a rock star. I'm nobody special. I'm the same thing. I'm the same cut. I'm the same breed as everybody else, because I am. There's no difference between me and somebody else that is working as a systems administrator, someone that just started the industry, or just someone that came through. It's really, you know, about being one as a community and working as a community. And the friends that I've picked up along the way, like Nick and Pr1me and Hackett and everybody else, I mean, different experiences, and I learn from every single one of them every single day. I mean, something new every single day. I mean, from Pr1me, I learned how to troll better. Nick, I learned not how to drive a golf cart. Hack, I learned how to get big hugs. So, no, but in all seriousness, you know, we have to learn from one another. And for you to be successful, it's really about making your own path. And this is going to sound like really horrible, but I literally live by the seat of my pants. Like, if you know my life, I don't book hotel rooms. I fly out and I'm like, okay, I'll find a hotel room here. There's one time it was really bad, like Justin Bieber was in town and I couldn't find any hotel for like 120 miles. So I ended up sleeping in my car and then, you know, anyways. So, but most of the time it works out. Most of the time it works out. But, you know, when you look at, you know, my life, I kind of drive it to what my gut tells me to do. And so, you know, when I left Secure State and I went to Diebold as the Chief Security Officer, you know, that's what my gut was telling me was the right thing for me to mature and grow and kind of learn. And those opportunities present themselves, and you can't be like, oh, I'm too nervous to do it. It's a life-changing event. You just got to go do it. You just got to go step forward and do it, figure it out, and then go from there. And it's like when I left Diebold to start TrustedSec. I had no idea what a company was like to run. I'd never done it before. No clue. No idea how to do the taxes, the accounting, you know, anything else whatsoever. And I just did it. And it works out. Everything works out no matter what. So, you know, when you have an idea, just do it and share it to people and show it to people and just keep building it. Keep working on it. I mean, SET is a very popular tool in the security industry, but it wasn't the first day I released it. The first day I released it, it was just a simple fisher that would go out and fish emails, and then from there, the Java app built into it, the credential harvesting, and then more people started contributing and adding on to it, and it became this big thing. It took, you know, I started SET 4 or 5 years ago, you know? It's taken that long to people to actually recognize and do what it is. So keep doing what you're doing and figure out what you're doing, but trust your gut and what you do and your instinct, because typically 9 times out of 10, it'll lead you the right way. And I haven't had an issue where, you know, I've jumped into something or my gut told me to do it and it hasn't worked out. And I know that sounds horrible, but I mean, you know, it's well thought out, obviously. I'm just going, kind of just going to do it, never mind. But, you know, the people is everything for me. And, you know, when I see everybody here, it reminds me of my first con at DEF CON 7, where it was such a tight-knit community. It was a small community, and there wasn't a lot of people fluxed into it. And it doesn't make it different that I was there at DEF CON 7 versus DEF CON 20. It's the same thing. It's just, you know, when I see everybody here at DerbyCon, I miss those days with, you know, seeing the Shmoo group on stage. And I remember, you know, and Bruce is the same way. Bruce is the exact same way. When you tell Bruce, dude, I idolize you, you're my hero, you're like the reason why I'm here. I tell Bruce that all the time. He's like, don't tell me that, please, seriously. It freaks me out. But, you know, I remember seeing Bruce on stage, and he had this you know, in the Shmoo group, and he had this box there, and it, you know, it was this box and it was UPS, and it was a really computer that was intercepting and sending all traffic over the internet. And you know, that was, you know, 2000 or something like that. You know, that was awesome back then, and I was like, man, these guys are so cool. I will never ever be like them, because they're you know, way super smart, like Einstein smart. And there are people like that, like HD's Einstein smart. But, you know, if you look at that, you know, those people are the reason why I move forward with it. And the next generation, there's a whole next generation of people that are coming through, kids and people that have already been in the industry that are just looking to break through. And that's the awesome part about it. I mean, I'll be looking back at this 20 years from now and saying, hey, you know, maybe I can be a Bruce Potter someday to somebody or something like that. And that's the cool feeling that you want to get. And that's really it. And don't lose focus of it. Don't ever gain an ego. Ego is the worst thing I ever had. It's human nature. Like, people come up to you, it's easy to be like, oh yeah, I'm better than that dude, I'm better than that dude, I'm cooler now, I can, you know, go high end and roll out a bunch of stuff. I've seen it consume people so much in this industry, and that's the worst thing I could ever have, and that's what scares me to death. So don't ever get an ego, make sure that you're always on the same level as everybody else, because you are on the same level as everybody else, and go from there, all right? Does anybody want to do questions? Any questions? Don't be shy. Yeah, sure.
So one thing that was pretty common for you guys was about one-to-one relationships, you know, building within the community by meeting people and being part of it. Since that is a common experience, I think for a lot of us, and while it's better than it was 10 years ago today, you know, our community still has a harder time accepting women each other, a harder time dealing with women, respecting them. While we've made progress in the last 10 years, what can we do to accelerate that? Because it's really the only way in with those relationships.
And that's a good question. And the question is really around females inside the information security field. And you know, I would say 4 or 5 years ago, I would have been like, hey, that's just hogwash, they're equal and everything. But I've seen it. I've seen women completely treated completely different in the Infosec community as anything else. And I think the reason stems from a lot of us, again, we're computer geeks. For one, we don't know how to talk to women, right? That's rare. Somehow some of us got married, which is amazing. Yeah, it's like, how I landed Aaron, no idea, but it worked, all right? That's all I'm saying. And computer geeks are like the new Justin Timberlake, all right? So, except for like hot abs and all that stuff. Anyways, so No, but the acceptance, I mean, it's been very much a predominantly male-driven industry for a very long time. And, you know, for me personally, I mean, I think having the influx of women coming in, I mean, there's women here in the audience, there's women coming to DerbyCon now, it's definitely growing in nature, and it's still really warped. I mean, we had a discussion yesterday, it's probably, you know, 1 female to 50 men, and that's probably being very generous. And so there needs to be more people in here, and how do you stop discrimination? I think I could cure the world if I could figure that out, you know, for race and gender and everything else. And just, I mean, for me personally, value-wise, I look at everybody as equals and the same. There's no difference between a man or a woman or someone that's white or black or, you know, yellow or green. It's all the same thing. We're all cut from the same, you know, genetics. And so I think there needs to be more acceptance with us. And I think if we see it, especially here at DerbyCon, if you see it, stop it right there, because this is a family, all right? This is what we wanted to get out of the con, where everybody, whomever you are, and if you notice the shirts, anybody see the shirts this year? Does anybody know what the message is behind that? So, what's that? Archie Bunker, no. The shirt's not this shirt, the All in the Family shirt for DerbyCon. So, you know, this year DEF CON released, you know, no feds at the conference, and I personally was very much objective to that. And while I don't agree with what the government is doing personally in my beliefs and coming from that side, everybody should be welcome to come wherever they want to go, no matter who they are, what they do, or who they work for. And I have some great friends that work in the government. And so if you look at the shirts, it has a person that's wearing a black hat, has a person that's wearing a white hat, and has a person that looks like a Fed. And it says all in the family. And it's really what we wanted to get out of this message is everybody can come here no matter what you are or who you are. And that's really the message we have to communicate back to the Infosec community, because it shouldn't be accepted, it shouldn't be acceptable at all, and we should make sure we stop it. And that's, you know, it comes with change and from us. So if you see it, stop it right away. Come to us and we'll stop it, trust me.
10 minutes. What you got?
Go ahead, on the left.
Hi. Sometimes, I don't know if anybody else can relate to this, but I was curious to pick up, especially, I think Hackett touched on it. You enter the industry, nobody I think walks into the industry is like, hey, I'm a security guy on the first day. So you spend years, you know, maybe you come from operations, maybe you come from somewhere else. You built this skill set, you know, like I spent years doing storage, VMware, unfortunately, I'm a backup guy, whatever. You start doing security stuff, and then everything, everywhere that you came from kind of pulls you back. Like, how, or like what tips, or what would you say to somebody who's trying to say, I'm really trying to transition from doing this for 10 years to full-time security? Like I said, look at my resume, and I don't want to discount what I've earned, and I don't want to discount what I've done, but when I present myself to the future employer, this happened with a large contractor. They do this weird like speed dating thing. We go into you sit down, and all the practice leads go around, and I had a guy look at me and he was like, yeah, I know you want to be a security guy, but you're really an infrastructure guy who kind of likes security. And I'm like, well, why don't you go fuck yourself? But obviously, I didn't say that.
Your eyes did.
I appreciate your perception, yeah, but I'm curious how you guys, if you need to, how do you address that?
And you just got to keep pressing forward, really. Keep adding to that skill set, keep building your resume. That's exactly, I think the same thing. I have a huge exchange background. I had a guy come to me and go, hey, look, we want to sign you up, $140 a year. All you got to do is take care of exchange for 2,500 motives. Yeah, I'll shoot myself, buddy. Thanks. And I got the same thing. He goes, well, I know you want to do security. He's like, but look what you've done. I said, I don't care what I've done. This is what I want to do. This is what I'm going to do. And you just got to keep pressing forward, keep building a skill set, and keep adding to it. Yeah, you will find a break. You know, it took me about 1.5 years to find the right spot and where I wanted to go. You know, I wasn't willing to sell my soul just to get into it. I wanted something that was going to be a good fit. And just be patient, keep going forward.
I'm a little more extreme than Hackett, I think. Okay, I would just go and quit my job and do it. And when I say that, and I know that sounds like a crazy, thing, but for me, I don't like to wait for a desired outcome. I make my outcome that desired outcome. So if I'm stuck in a position that I know is not what I'm supposed to be doing in life, I just change it and do it. And it takes a lot of thought and it takes a lot of planning to do it. But you're here, you're learning from people, you're doing your own thing, you have that desire to do security. You can't stay where you're at because it won't change. You just got to be like, listen, I don't want to do this anymore. And yes, I have family and all this other stuff, but I need to chase my dream and do it, and it'll work out. And it sounds like it's crazy and irresponsible and risky and all that stuff. But go and find a job where you start off. I mean, and the problem you have, and it's not unique to anybody else, but you've been in a certain position for 10 years. So when you go into a new field it's not completely different, it's obviously still technology, but you go to a different field, you're gonna have to take a few steps back. You're gonna have to move back a little bit. That may change your quality of life and what you do and scale it. I mean, I remember when I went and first worked on my first job at Secure State, I was making pennies on the dollar. I remember, living in my parents' house with Aaron, for a few months so we could collect enough money for rent for an apartment for the first time. And then I remember, building up from there and kind of going back and moving forward a little bit. You have to take steps back to move forward. And for me personally, if I was stuck in a position that I didn't want to do and I knew it wasn't my calling, I would stop it tomorrow and I'd go somewhere else and do it because it'll work out. It will.
You also can use that as an experience. Would you rather have somebody straight out of college saying, hey, I can fix everything, I can secure everything, if somebody's got experience in 10 years maintaining, and now you know how it works. Now I know how it works and secure it so where it will work securely.
Yeah, all these skill sets build on top of each other as well.
Your experience with that background, if you append that to, hey, I know these weaknesses in that background, and you put together information and share it with the community, you'll start building rapport with other companies out there that are looking for someone on the security back end that knows this stuff from an administration standpoint, so they can apply that.
It'd be much more desirable.
Yeah, absolutely.
And not everybody here, I'm sure, works for a large corporation. Just from my perspective, where I came from, I've always, besides working for Gateway and being a tech monkey, I've either worked for myself or for a 2 or 3 man shop. In that case, it's a little bit different. You have to look at it from the way, okay, that's just me. How do I stand out when I have very little or if any Infosec experience? And that's where getting involved with the community and seeing what type of letters that you want to have after your name are the ones that actually mean something. And that can really open up the way to get into Infosec, and really it can be broken up into different categories too. Like I am definitely 100% a person who likes to break things. So I'm a pen tester. I want to break. I want to hit a human hack. I want to break into systems, and I don't necessarily want to worry too much about fixing them. Obviously, we do show them how to fix them, but that's my mentality. I don't really care too much about making a perimeter defense, but we obviously will fix what we break. But that's just my 2 cents from someone who has worked by himself for I had my own business for 12 years. So.
Philosophy-wise, you have to change your pattern of what you perceive and how you do things. Okay, and the reason I say that is look to the person to the left or right of you. Are they the same as you? No. Are they any smarter than you? No. Are they in a different level than you in any way, shape, or form? No, they're humans, right? We're all here on the same planet, same work and everything. So the stuff that we are told isn't necessarily the right way to do things. So what I recommend is there's this book out there, and I recommend all my talks, and Chris Nickerson taught me on it. It's called Rework. It's made by the guys at 37 Signals. Read that book once a month. Just read it once a month. It's the polar opposite of what we're taught in society to do, and it works. And it's just a different way of thinking about your life and how you do things, and I really much attest to it. And it's funny because, I don't know, is Sinak Conan here, by chance? No? Okay, so he did a tweet yesterday, and I gotta get this out of me because it's the polar opposite of who I am. Sinak tweeted a meme of me, and it said, it was a big picture of me with a Pr1me hat on it, and it said, schedules his own talk at his own awesome con, along with Asobi and Georgia Weidman and blah, 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 blah. And to me, that really hurt me personally because that's not what I wanted. In fact, I don't speak at the cons. The only time I spoke at DerbyCon was the first one. And, Pr1me and Glitch said, hey, Dave, would you mind speaking to the people talking about your experiences? Because we'd like to hear it. And I said, well, all right, it'll be fine. So I tucked us in a small room, put us against a lot of big names so that there'd be a lot of people going to those and not to here. to make it a little bit less fair. And, you know, what I will always say is I always, in my life, try to do the right thing. I can honestly say, and I come from a different background as everybody here, I think. Never did anything unethical, ever. Like, I've never broken into a computer system where I didn't have access to it. I haven't broken into a system or booted somebody off IRC. I mean, I always looked at those guys and watched them and figured things out. But I've never done it once, and that's kind of the testament that I live by, is always doing the right thing no matter what. And you do that, and good things happen to you. It's just karma, just karma. And so I like to say this in that going, you're completely wrong on that. So.
Thanks, guys.